Okay, hello and welcome. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about more about world building, and I'm going to be first of all exploring how to, I guess you could say, craft out a world based around a simple already existing idea, and then right after that, I'm going to be creating a world entirely from scratch that I just came up with the idea with in the last video of talking about a city. So let's get into it. So starting with Candyland. So I was looking at it last night actually, and I thought it was really interesting. There's several curious things. So the two things that stood out to me first was number one, the kids. So if you ever played Candyland, so first, the basis of Candyland. Candyland is a board game. If you haven't played it, that's pretty sad. It's a pretty great game. I loved it as a child. Still love it kind of now. So anyway, so the main point is that you and the other players are little gingerbread cookies, gingerbread kids, and you are going down the pathway through the kingdom, trying to get to the kingdom's path. Because you're trying to get in contact with the king. Now, suppose he disappeared, but you go looking for him at the castle, because that's the first place you should look, and he's there. So I don't really get the whole point of that. But that part aside, the main point is that along the way you meet with several other characters that give a little bit more depth and interest to the world. And so I'm going to be going through those characters right now, and we're going to kind of talk about the implications those people will have on the world, along with several of the I guess you could say geographical points of interest. So we're starting off with the kids. So in the classic game, there were what's it called? There were several gingerbread kids that you played as, but apparently in the newest version, they are a marshmallow, an ice cream cone, a gumdrop, and a gingerbread girl, which is really weird. Kind of cool, but really weird. Which we'll also get into a little bit later with some of the different, I guess you could say, impacts of that. Now, so technically the first person you meet on the trail is Mama Ginger Tree. So it says makes the best ginger snaps in all of Candyland. She was removed from the game. Ooh, that's rough. So so she's the one that really makes things interesting, as she's what kind of started my, I guess you could say, idea. So young gingerbread people seen in various editions of Candyland, usually as the player's pieces. So one of them is Ginger Ninja, an unknown character and child of Mama Ginger Tree. Now, this is interesting for one specific reason. So Ginger Ninja is not a tree, but she's the child of a tree. And they're both gingerbread. Now, hear me out. So you could easily say that this is a product of a curse. Now, a weird curse and a debatably beneficial curse, or good curse, but a curse nonetheless. That, they kind of got, what's that movie? Beauty and the Beast. They kind of got Beauty and the Beasted, but instead of turn into, parts of the house, they turned into, confectionery and candy and stuff. But I don't know, because a gingerbread tree kind of seems like it could in the magical circumstances have evolved from a regular tree. Now, this theory that I came up with actually gets even better when you look at some of the other creatures. But however, it also makes the interesting idea for the curse also stronger. So it can go really either way. So the other main person of interest is, what's his name? Lord Licorice. Now Lord Licorice is supposedly the villain of the story, or of the game. So there's little licorice squares where if you land on one, you're stuck there until you roll, you get the same tile as the one you're currently sitting on, because you draw cards with tiled colors on them rather than rolled dice. So it's a really interesting decision for the game, and honestly I really like it. Now, he is the villain of Candyland. He rules Licorice Castle. Or in newer games, it's Licorice Forest or Licorice Lagoon. So we see how his place is getting worse and worse over time. I'm going to kind of be using the general timeline of the game to also be concluding softly general timeline in game as well. Now, with that in mind, the more interesting part isn't him, it's his minions, which are Spidora, or Spidora, which is one of his pets. She's a small red spider with 8 legs. And she has stripes, which aren't really important. But the main part is that it's just a spider. It's just a spider. For example, the next one is Buzzy, which is another one of his pets, and it's a vulture, which is really interesting. And then after that is Crockett, which is just a crocodile. Now, the only other animal in the entirety of this game is Baz, which is a dog of Grandma Nut. Now, okay, there we go. Sorry, I just felt subconscious about my door being open. Anyway, so we back at it. So we were looking at the forest and the construction materials that we generally use. Now, he has a candy castle. Now, while that is great and all, it's really hard to tell what his castle is really made of, because it doesn't look like any particular sweets. The only thing that's really, I guess you could say, you could kind of pull from it, is the fact that it has a what looks like a gumball machine just strapped to the side, which is really weird. Now, given that fact, we don't really know what his house is made of. And also, as far as you can tell with everyone's houses besides them, they all just look like regular houses. So, either, and there's like one other person with a house, and their house is just a shack. So, yeah, it'd be like that sometimes. So, what might be the most, I guess you could say, logical reasoning is that a lot of them don't actually use their wood for construction of their own buildings. They very likely, most of them, are selling the wood to other countries and licorice candy cane wood to other countries, and then buying wood from them, because obviously licorice would sell, and licorice would sell. Yeah, there's those weirdos. Anyway, and also the candy cane would sell for quite a bit. Now, along that same line, they would get wood a lot cheaper, so they could easily get their hands on wood, create buildings, and be making a lot more money for their kingdom. So like I said earlier, this country would be making a lot of money, but also be putting a lot of money towards their defense budget, as they would likely be virtually on the edge of war quite a bit from different people. Maybe not war necessarily, but they would always be having to fend off poachers. Now, with that, they probably have alliances with every kingdom around them. Now, as far as we can tell, there's only one princess that there's ever been. So, she isn't married yet, but she most likely is engaged. But all that's kind of semantics. So they probably have good relations with everyone around them. Now, how likely they will be to let people into their kingdom is debatable. They might have it more of a, like, you can take a tour, kind of thing. But I'm saying it's interesting because I could see them letting people in, but considering the fact that we don't see anyone else, but then again, we only see the major figures, and there is one major figure that is not normal with everyone else. So he could be the start of people starting to migrate into their kingdom, which a lot of the natives might not like very much, as they correlate natives. Well, they correlate, people who aren't native to being threats, since generally they've grown up people coming in and trying to kidnap them so that they could sell them, or stealing their land or their goods or anything like that. So it's very likely the natives have a hostile disposition towards anyone from outside the kingdom based on past offenses. So I would say that could be an interesting conflict, as I talked about in the other video, to go into, of the conflict between people coming in and the natives who have been abused and attacked by those outside their kingdom because of how special the stuff they have is. So I would say that's probably the most interesting thing. So yeah, another thing, kind of a side note, is so I was looking at somebody's art today, and it was really, really cool. Let me okay, so I found them. I'll tag them down below. Their name's Easier Can Draw. Really cool stuff. Really good drawings. And I was scrolling through their account today, and I found this really cool image of what's it called? Of like a person, and I forget exactly what it said, but basically it was like candy gore, and this person had a wound in their side, and it was candy spilling out, and I was just like, what? So I thought it'd be really cool if the native human-looking people to this land would bleed candy or sweets, because that'd be really interesting and a really fun, flavorful thing that you wouldn't really, necessarily, what's it called, be able to show in some types of media, but you would be able to add it, and it would add a lot of interesting flavor to the story, I feel, of candy gore, of having them bleed candy instead of blood, which you might need to switch it up type of candy. You might want a liquid-based candy to make it make more sense, but I thought it was really cool either way. So yeah, another one of the fun things. Oh. Okay, I just got a really interesting idea for a type of candy necromancy. I'm not really sure how it's gonna work though, but yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so that's just some of the stuff that I thought of over the past day while looking at this stuff, and so that's kind of like the basic world building I would do for Candyland to getting it started. Now, on to the next part, which this next one is one I came up while creating another video, which was like 15 minutes ago. So, while making that video, we were talking about the cities, and I was just like, hey, city, because I said you can't really just make just a city, you have to make everything around it as well. You don't have to go into very deep, but you still like generally need to have stuff about the rest of the kingdom, because the city has to trade with people. But I was like, wait a second, what if there's just a city? So it also kind of came from the idea of I forget the exact name, but basically it came from two things. So Starfield, the new game out, saw someone make a what's it called, Waffle House in the middle of a very deserted Earth planet, and I was like, that's pretty fun. And then there's a show that came out recently, I forget what it's called, but it was basically a humorous city building show, where basically it was an animated show about a dude, I think it was called like Brad Topoli or something like that. Anyway, so basically, he's building a kingdom, and he's having to deal with all these new outside threats and how to deal with them. So I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. So basically, there's two different options. Now, the one is just a city. Now, for all you Whovians out there, the way I understood it is that, Gallifrey was teleported to an extra dimensional place and couldn't escape it, but also neither could the Daleks. Which, yeah, still kind of confused about that. Also, I didn't watch past the first season of the 13th Doctor, so I don't have everything, and I don't know everything. But main point is that, what if there's just a void and a city, or a new planet and a new city? Now, this could come from two different places. Number one, I like that a lot. I like that. Okay. Hear me out. Okay, so I know my drawing skills are amazing. So so in this idea, anyway, in this idea, we have an entire city that was just teleported here by a mage or several mages, depending on how we want to work it. Either way, magically brought here because this city. This is just outlying territory around them that they kind of were able to pick up, but they weren't able to pick up, a lot of stuff. So they were able to pick up a little bit of stuff, and they just teleported to a different. They just dimension shifted basically, and so they were being attacked by a bunch of dragons or something dangerous, and so they dimension shifted to escape the attack and not be annihilated, and so now they're trying to figure out where they are. Now, you could say, why don't they just go back? That's a good question. It's because dimension shifting is random. And once you dimension shift, you'll have to rest for at least a day to be able to do it again. And since the place they're at right now isn't too bad, at least at first glance, they're like, let's just stay here, I guess, because they could end up somewhere else worse. And so while their mages try and figure out how to just go to one specific dimension, they're stuck here. Well, not necessarily they're stuck here, but they're better off here, at least, as long as everything goes okay. So it's gonna be them trying to figure out where they are and technically trying to figure out where they came from, because they know what they call it, but they don't know what everyone else calls it. Kind of like my theory with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which I kind of like a video on that. It's really interesting. I don't think that took place in the mainline Marvel Universe, but that's a different story. So anyway, main point is that this thing, it just has to figure out where they are. So since this is a kind of a special case and they don't know anything around them, what we want to do is kind of the same stuff. Figure out their power system, which we already figured out is some sort of magic, especially magic that can be pulled together, which is interesting. Then after that, we also kind of want to know what was their previous world like. That's spelled wrong, because the main thing is they're coming from somewhere, so they have their society built in a certain way. So when they meet somebody else who has a different worldview, coming in, the two are going to clash. And how they clash is going to be the interesting part of them meeting new civilizations. Because if they meet a very warlike civilization, if they're a peace-like civilization, they'll be like, oh no, we don't want to mess around with these guys. How do we make sure we don't die? But if they're also a warlike civilization, they either just go to war right away, or they try to figure out a way to peacefully resolve things. Boring. Or I mean, not peacefully resolve things. They just become friends and be like, war together? Monk strong together. No, monk together strong. My bad. So, we have things like that where their original worldviews and where they previously were from is going to affect how they interact with the new people on the planet. Now, one of the really good situations of this, one of the good examples of this actually, is Stargate Atlantis. So, if you've seen Stargate, specifically Stargate Atlantis, you'll understand that they get to Atlantis and they're an entire different universe. So they're using Atlantis as their base of operations, and they go out and they meet different people in the world. And at first, everything's going smooth, they're meeting people, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's, space vampires, pretty much. And really cool anime, honestly. And so now I have to deal with these space vampires and everything that goes along with them. So that's really interesting and really cool. And so yeah, so you want their previous, or their technically current worldviews, or their previous worldviews, their power system that they have, and then seeing how that'll interact with the current power system that exists in the world that they're at, which let's worry about that later. And then we also need to worry about two other things, which is number one, what was the previous Earth like or world like, and what is this one like? So, to make things kind of simple, we'll just, have them ripped from a mostly generic fantasy world. So, in this mostly generic fantasy world, we would have, the basic races. Elves, dwarves, maybe not hobbits, maybe hobbits, I don't know. Obviously humans. So, just all the basic ones. Some of the cool ones. Then after that, we would have, so besides the basic magic system, is there any kind of flair you want to add to it? Oh. Okay. No. Let's not do that. Okay, so let's have mostly basic magic. So, mostly basic magic is two parts. So, at least what I mean by it. Everyone else has their own meaning depending on the situation. But in this situation, mostly basic magic means, first of all, mostly simple magic. So, not anything too crazy for magic spells. Mostly, unlike, for example, dimension shifting. And also, mostly simple magic in this case also means it's mostly just magic that you'd expect from magic, nothing too crazy. But I might change that since I can't think of anything right now. Just leave it as is. Then, since that was their previous world, we'll have them be a mostly peaceful civilization. And then let's do the current world. So the current world's gonna be soft sci-fi. So it'd be kind of like Star Wars, where there's mystical elements, but they feel like a different flavor of mystical. like the Night Sisters and stuff like that. And then there's going to be so things are being energy powered, weird energy powered though. So not like generic batteries. It could be they use like monster cores or something like that to power their stuff for their more of sci-fi like things, but they'll be using things like blasters. Let's see. What else do we want? So we'll have so all the creatures here that are sentient are humanoid. Well, actually, let's make a couple non-humanoid sentient creatures. Could be cool. Let's make a donkey like. Oops. Oh my gosh. We'll just make it My Little Pony. Okay, so we're just gonna have like a sentient race of My Little Pony style creatures. So we're gonna make it a little bit, you know, slightly more weird but slightly less weird at the same time, you know. Now let's have them be an extremely warlike species. And then we'll have the humanoids be mostly good trying to fight them off. However, the humanoids are just as likely to exploit them as they are to help them, since they're doing anything they can to be able to win over against the sentient pony-like species that can also use weirdly weird magic. Black magic. Necromancers. Yes. So a type of necromancer. Okay. But yeah. Okay, okay, we're just gonna say everyone can use magic. But not everyone's obviously super skilled at it. Otherwise it'd be really easy to, you know, just speed run universes. So everyone has magic. Not everyone's really strong in magic though. No. I'll think of them more. So I might want to put more thought into the basic magic system. But we have those done, that done. So now we have like the basic setup for the world pretty much done. This is the basic setup. Now we have a conflict, another conflict, and we have the magic power system. We have the world somewhat created. And so this is what I like to call the pitch. So I usually build up till here. Sometimes I build out from here, obviously, but I generally build up to here whenever I'm just creating a world for fun, because I make this the pitch so that way if I ever do want to get into it, I'll have what I need to get started and then can build it out with flavor. If I want to write into a story, which I never do because I'm stuck at writing stories, or if I want to run it like a D&D session like I normally do, and I'm like, hey, interested, and if they're interested, then I build out the rest of the world And sometimes I don't really fully build it out because I want my players to help me build it out, with them being like, hey, I want my player to be able to do this, or I would like to play this race, or something of that nature. And they're like, okay, I'm gonna work them in. And I found frequently that whenever I build out the world in its entirety too much or too specifically, that I then run into problems of restricting my players and their fun. And, you know, in some cases, obviously, if you built this world fully, hey kitty, how's it going? You might, you know, want to just, you know, have your world done and built and ready for all your players. But for someone like me who does things a lot more, I guess, like on the fly. Okay, also, because when all this is said and done, also, I don't want me to not be able to retract my magic system if I need to. Because, for example, yes, kitty? What is it? There you go. Okay. So, you know, my magic system, obviously, is simple. So if I want to do something more flavorful later on, or introduce one of my old ideas for magic systems into this, or power systems, if I just want them to have powers, then, you know, I'll need to do that. But yeah, so that's mostly the basis of this world idea. What's unique about it? I would say probably the two most unique things are probably just the exploration thing of them just not knowing where they are, and also them interacting with sci-fi and My Little Pony-esque necromancer-like species. So yeah, pretty much that one has the groundwork done. So my kitty has decided to join us. Hey kitty. Don't bite me. Thank you. Anyway, so that was pretty much it. So making a world doesn't take much time, as I guess you could say I soft created one with Candyland, as I'm still kind of confused about the magic system, but I think I'll do a kind of a soft magic system kind of thing. And with the other one, I can do a harder one because of the way it was built. But yeah, so really interesting, really fun. Just a cool thing to do sometime when you're bored. And if you like me and you suck at writing but you like world building, it's pretty fun. And I suggest, you know, D&D, because you can just use the world without having to figure out what your characters are going to say in the book, which is hard part for me. Anyway, hope that was fun for you guys. Hope you guys maybe found something you liked in this video to, you know, use in your world building. Or maybe you're just like, wow, he sucks at this, you know? And hey, that's fair. Anyway, hope you guys have a great day. See you later.